Question 16. What happens to people who never understood the gospel? This is a question in a playlist called 50 Hot Potato Questions for Christians. So, what happens to a person who never understood the gospel? It seems quite unfair for a person who never understood the gospel message when it was explained to them. It seems quite unfair that that person would go to hell for that. Isn't it more on the side of the person who's explaining the gospel? Isn't it their duty to explain the gospel properly? Surely a person who has heard the gospel and didn't quite understand what it meant, surely they wouldn't be judged. In answer to this question, I would side on the mercy of God. And once again, in the previous question, I asked what happens to people who've never heard the gospel, and my answer was that those people are judged, I personally believe, by the merits of the sheep and the goats parable. If they had a good heart and were good to people according to the righteousness found in the sheep and the goats parable, I believe they'd go to heaven. And I believe the same is true of people who don't understand the gospel. I would say that they would be judged by the merits of the sheep and the goats parable. I lived a life that consisted of a lot of sin. I had sexual addictions, and I lived many years of my life in sin. And I've had periods of 6 months outside of the sin where I've conquered it and then fallen again to temptation and fallen back into it. And I know God as a God of mercy. I know God as a forgiving God, and I tend to have a good relationship with God and seem to understand Him quite well. And I can't see a person who, for no fault of their own, can't understand the gospel and doesn't fully understand the gospel message, and so aren't really rejecting the gospel when they don't accept Jesus as their savior because they don't understand the gospel. I can't see them being judged and sent to hell because of that lack of understanding. So I personally would side on the mercy of God. I'd side with God's mercy in this situation, and I would personally believe that God would make a way for them to come into the kingdom. There's a lot of good-hearted people in the world, a lot of genuine, beautiful people in the world that live in our society and never really understand the gospel message and haven't got an ability to respond to the gospel message simply because they don't understand it, and so I would side on the mercy of God in this situation. I pray that you've been blessed by this message and saw something that you understood. God bless.